Woman gives birth to strange babies. Doctor says, "I'm sorry, but..." The rain hadn't stopped all day. It tapped against the hospital windows like a steady drum, as if counting down to something Karen couldn't quite name. Her hands gripped the sides of the hospital bed, knuckles white. She was 42 years old, and after years of trying, she was finally about to become a mother. A twin birth, no less. It was supposed to be the happiest moment of her life. But something didn't feel right. Tom stood beside her, his voice calm but shaky. He squeezed her hand and told her to breathe, but the tightness in Karen's chest wouldn't let go. The nurse had said everything was progressing normally. The contractions were strong, the timing was right. Still, the tension in the room felt heavier than it should. When the first baby came, there was no cheering, no joyful announcement, just silence. Karen blinked through the sweat and tears, searching the faces of the medical team. The doctor, Dr. Peters, didn't smile. He didn't hold the baby up or say whether it was a boy or girl. He turned quickly and passed the child to a nurse, who rushed toward the corner of the room where a curtain blocked Karen's view. Her heart dropped. She opened her mouth to speak, but before the words came out, the second baby arrived. Another moment passed. Another hush fell. Then, finally, Dr. Peters leaned close to her, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, but we need to examine them, just to be safe." Karen's eyes darted toward Tom. He looked pale, confused. They were supposed to hear crying by now. But there was only the hum of machines, the shuffle of feet, the quiet exchange of glances between nurses. She lifted her head, straining to see past the curtain. She caught the briefest glimpse, just a shape, a bundle, and something in her stomach turned cold. The doctor didn't meet her eyes. A nurse gently adjusted her IV. The babies were taken out of the room. Karen lay there, her body trembling, her mind racing. No one said if they were okay. No one said if they were breathing. Outside, the storm rolled on. Inside, the silence said everything. Karen sat propped up in the hospital bed, the room dim and quiet, except for the beeping of the monitors. The rain outside had slowed to a drizzle, but the storm inside her was just beginning. It had been nearly 2 hours since the babies were taken away. No one had come in with answers. No one had told her what was wrong. Tom paced the hallway just outside the door. Every few minutes, he peeked inside, offering a forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. His shirt was wrinkled. His hands shook when he held his coffee. He didn't drink it. A nurse finally entered, adjusting Karen's blanket, checking her vitals. Karen asked about the babies. The nurse said the doctor would speak with her soon, then turned away without another word. Her voice was flat, her face unreadable. Something was wrong, that much was clear. Karen's mind spun. She thought back to every moment of her pregnancy, every doctor's visit, every ultrasound. Everything had looked fine. She'd eaten what she was supposed to. She'd taken the vitamins. She hadn't missed a single appointment. Her chest tightened. Maybe it was her age. Maybe something had gone wrong in her body that she never saw coming. Maybe this was her fault. She glanced toward the small window across the room. Through it, across the hall, she saw a nurse holding a baby. It was only for a second. A quick glance. But something about the baby's face made her freeze. She couldn't see clearly, but it looked different. The skin, the shape. It didn't look like a newborn. Her breath caught. The door opened and Dr. Peters stepped in. He looked tired, worn. He pulled up a chair and sat at her bedside. His words were soft, careful. He said both babies were stable, breathing, heartbeats strong. But there were, in his words, visible abnormalities. More tests were needed. He wouldn't say more, not yet. Karen felt like the room was tilting. She looked over at Tom, who had come back in and now sat at her feet, quiet. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just stared at the ceiling, listening to the clock tick, waiting. The hallway outside Karen's room felt colder now. Nurses passed by with quick footsteps, eyes avoiding hers. One whispered to another just as they turned the corner. Karen noticed. She noticed everything. Tom had gone to get some air, or maybe just to be alone. When he came back, his jaw was tight. He didn't speak right away. He just stood by the window, arms crossed, staring out at the gray sky. A message came through on Karen's phone from her sister-in-law, Melanie. Heard there's a complication. Praying for you. No details. No comfort. Just a polite way to ask what was going on. Karen didn't answer. Her own mother had called earlier. She said something about God having a plan. Karen had nodded through the phone call, but now those words clung to her like damp clothes. She didn't want a plan. She wanted her babies. By mid-afternoon, the hospital chaplain came in. He asked if she wanted prayer. She said no, not right now. But his presence said something unspoken. That someone had called him. That someone thought this might be worse than anyone was saying out loud. Karen pulled the thin blanket up to her chest. She could still feel the ache in her body from labor, but it was distant now, replaced by a heaviness she couldn't shake. Through the window again, another glimpse. 2 bassinets, covered, nurses standing near. One looked up, met Karen's eyes, and quickly turned away. Karen's thoughts swirled. Maybe it was something genetic, maybe something from her side of the family. Or maybe this was punishment. For the years she spent chasing a career, for waiting so long to start a family, for believing it would all work out. She closed her eyes and saw flashes of their nursery at home. 2 cribs, pale yellow walls, stuffed animals lined up on the shelf. She thought of the tiny clothes folded in drawers, the names she and Tom had whispered at night. Then she felt it, something shift, deep in her chest. She threw the blanket aside and sat up. Her body trembled, but her mind was clear. She couldn't sit here in silence anymore. It didn't matter what they looked like. She needed to hold them. The door opened slowly. Dr. Peters walked in with a folder pressed tight against his chest. His face looked calmer than before, but still serious. Karen sat upright in the bed, her hands clenched in her lap. Tom stood beside her, one hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Dr. Peters sat down, glanced between them, and took a breath. He said the babies had been stable overnight. Their breathing was strong, heart function normal, reflexes good. That part was reassuring. But then came the pause. That small, heavy moment right before the real news drops. He told them the medical team had consulted with a genetic specialist. The features they had seen, the loose, wrinkled skin, the aged appearance, pointed to something rare. Very rare. He said the name slowly, carefully, like it might break if he said it too fast. Karen didn't recognize the term. Neither did Tom. The words floated in the air, cold and strange. Dr. Peters explained that the babies had a syndrome that made their skin look older than it was. It wasn't typical progeria, the kind that shortens life. It was something different. Milder. A form where the children could grow and live full lives. But they would look different. They would always look different. Karen stared at the wall. The words reached her ears but took longer to sink in. Different. Full lives. But not like other kids. She thought of schoolyards, of stairs, of questions. She imagined tiny faces trying to understand why they didn't match the pictures in books, why other children pointed or laughed. Her heart ached with both fear and love. Tom leaned forward, asking direct questions. What would this mean? Would they be in pain? Would it get worse? Dr. Peters shook his head. No pain. No expected decline. Just appearance. A rare gene that showed itself in ways they hadn't seen before. The babies were otherwise healthy. Healthy. Karen held onto that word like a rope. Later they let her see them again. Really see them. She reached out, touched their tiny fingers. Their skin was soft, loose, but warm. Their eyes opened and looked right at her. And in that moment, all she saw was her children. The sun was out the morning they brought the twins home. For the first time in days, the sky was clear. Karen sat in the back seat of the car with one baby in each arm, wrapped in soft blue and green blankets. Their skin still looked different, thin, wrinkled, like something aged before its time. But their eyes were bright, curious, alive. Neighbors came by that first week. Some brought food, others stayed back, unsure what to say. Most stared too long before smiling too fast. But Karen noticed the ones who didn't flinch. The older woman from down the street who brought a quilt and whispered, "Beautiful babies, every one of them." The young cashier from the grocery store who dropped off diapers and never blinked. At night, Karen fed them slowly, cradling their small heads in the crook of her arm. Their skin folded in places like old paper. But their cries were strong, their grip even stronger. She named them Ruby and Noah. It felt right, like the names had been waiting for them all along. Months passed, then a year, then 2. The children grew. They walked late but laughed early. Their faces still drew stares at playgrounds, still caught people off guard. But they were strong, happy, alive. Doctors called it a progeroid syndrome, a rare condition that made them appear much older than they were. Their skin, their bone structure, even their hair. It gave them the appearance of age from the very start. But their bodies worked. Their organs thrived. Their growth, while a little slow, stayed on track. It was a harmless genetic twist, doctors said. Something carried quietly by both Karen and Tom without either of them knowing. A 1 in a million chance. Karen started writing about their journey. She shared photos, told their story. At first, it was for family. Then, it reached others. Mothers who felt alone. Parents who feared the unknown. Her posts went viral. People sent letters, stories, drawings of Ruby and Noah as superheroes. Years later, when Ruby asked why she looked different, Karen knelt beside her and said, "Because you were born with something rare. And rare things are the ones people remember." And Ruby smiled, not shyly, but wide.